Welcome to part 3 of this Q&A session. We have touched on a big variety of topics so far. We've probably had about 30 to 40 different questions. I've tried to group the more scientific, in-depth questions to last. Hopefully the first two parts of this Q&A brings you to a point that makes these things a little bit easier to understand. And it's also about summing these points up that into things that is relatable as well and not too technical. And the job of a coach is not to make things sound more complex, but to make it sound more straightforward. And we don't need to overcomplicate something like running, but it is complex. But we're trying to bring it down into things that everyone can understand. So let's crack on. For all these questions, I don't have any preparation. I just write down what people have asked, and we just reel them off. So first one is what's the most misunderstood concept in exercise physiology among recreational runners? Probably the most misunderstood concept is that the thought that exercise physiology is everything about performance. Because you can have the best VO2 max, the best lactate threshold, the best running economy, but not have the best psychology. You might have excessive muscle fatigue, so you're not going to perform well. There's other elements, the musculoskeletal system, the psychology side, your motivation level on the day and stuff like that. So it doesn't sum up everything. And then in terms of exercise physiology itself, VO2 max is overrated because you can have a low VO2 max but be very economical and operate very close to that VO2 max, i.e. high LT2 lactate threshold. And you can beat someone with a higher VO2 max who has worse running economy and a worse lactate threshold. What's the most important aspect of exercise physiology? It's probably running economy. And it's the thing that you can, influence the most, and there's so many factors that affect running economy. The question is not to explain what all those factors are, but what's the most misunderstood concept? I think those two things. For recreational runners, what's the definition of that? I think you need to get out there and enjoy the sport and not worry too much about the science at that stage. Don't overcomplicate something early on. Like if you're just starting running, you don't need to know everything straight away. It's a process that takes years, and you don't need to waste your energy on trying to understand everything straight away. Maybe that's a misunderstood concept as well. Number 2. How do you balance intensity versus volume when designing a training plan for long-term development? So it's not an either-or. There's also a third factor in there, that's volume of intensity. So it's not just volume or intensity. It depends on what event. If the question was a specific event, it'd be easier to answer. It depends on if you're a junior athlete, say under 21. I don't think you want to rush the volume when you're under 21. You want to get as much out of the volume that you're putting in and thinking about there's always somewhere to go in the later years. Likewise with a masters athlete, I'm not going to put an age on that. But you need more recovery, so then the intensity usually has to drop. But then the volume, drops. But then you take more notice of your foot contacts throughout the week. So you don't want to waste the foot contacts. That's the way I kind of describe it. So we do cross-training, we do non-impact activities. That's easy to recover from for the body structurally. We kind of lose fast twitch fibres as we get older as well, and that power output and that force production. So we need intensity, but we need intensity that's spread out. So I guess there's another factor in there, and that's density. The density of the week needs to change, and what I mean by that is that if you do a hard session on Monday, maybe when you're under 30, you could do a hard session on Wednesday, but maybe when you're getting a little bit older, that hard session needs to be Thursday. Or what exactly that hard session is maybe needs to be altered in terms of intensity and volume. That question could go on and on and on and on. But I guess, how do you balance them? So don't increase volume and intensity at the same time. Because that's a recipe for disaster. So this is why we periodise training. And you have a 6-month block, say, where you have a base phase, which is about increasing volume, increasing the foundations, easy intensity, more polarised. The Canova funnel periodisation type model, where you do a lot of easy running, and then you do a small amount of kind of top end speed work, short hill sprints, stuff like that. And then you funnel things in, so then you start working closer to race paces and goal efforts. And you increase the volume of intensity throughout the block around your goal pace, goal effort, if that makes sense. Classic Canova periodization, I guess. That's the model I try to use on a lot of people. It doesn't work on everyone. As I said in previous answers, that you can't have one fixed philosophy and belief for every athlete that you coach, because there's different situations and people can't all follow Canova's funnel. That's only for certain people. So yeah, don't do lots of intensity and lots of volume at the same time. And then you have coaches that favour more intensity based approaches, coaches that favour more volume based approaches. But then I would ask the question is, if your whole philosophy is based on one or the other, are there not athletes within your group or within your team that could maybe benefit from the other one as well? Why you only have one belief? I think you need to be able to use all the tools in the box, not just one or two. Okay, next question. How do you distinguish between productive fatigue and overtraining? That is a good question, because everyone gets tired during the week from hard sessions, hard training, or just a lot of training. I suppose the question would be is, how do you know the fatigue's coming from your training and not from other things in your life? What happens if you've had a really stressful work week or life event, or you've suddenly done an extra 5 hours of driving this week? It's not just the training, is it? So you need to look at all those factors. This is going to be blown around everywhere. But how would you distinguish between them both? So when do you go over that red line? We're talking about the red line here, aren't we? I think I talked about that in part 1. So you got to know where that red line is on an athlete. I'm talking about maybe a coach looking in on an athlete here rather than an athlete looking at themselves, because I think it's easier for someone else to notice if someone's crossing the red line. But I would say things like, let's look at it from a practical level. Have you got a lot of muscle tension for consecutive days? For example, if you were to kind of palpate your muscles, your quads, is it really easy to get to the muscle belly, or is it quite difficult? As in, like, you're really tense. And if that's like over a few days consistently, then there's probably a problem going to happen. Whether that's muscularly or whether that's kind of immune system as well. So yeah, we need to bring that muscle tension down through different activities that we can bring in. There's different types of fatigue. So you've got muscular fatigue, you've got kind of whole body fatigue, you've got kind of psychological fatigue, so mental burnout, loss of motivation, kind of anxious about stuff you weren't anxious about before. Sometimes all those things come at once, and I think if they all come at once, then you're probably most likely overtraining. Are you losing sleep? Is your sleep schedule quite poor? Find it hard to get to sleep? That's classic overtraining. Have you got an elevated heart rate in the morning, more than 10 beats over what your normal resting heart rate is? That's kind of a good looking at the kind of physiological cardiovascular element of that. And obviously all these things intertwine, but yeah, there's different types of fatigue, so it's not just one thing. And there are activities we can do, like right now, that can change how fatigued you are. We can make you more fatigued, we can make you less fatigued. These are all tools we can use. You got burnout, go and do something else. Don't run. Go and do something else. Go and do something you enjoy. Don't go for a run. Like, I don't know, do something you like doing that's not physical. Take your mind off it. Don't go more into it. But yeah, we're still working out what type of fatigue it is. Number 4, what are the most common biomechanical causes of injury that you see? So I guess that's like almost the question of, what are the root causes of the injuries that you see? I guess, what are the most common injuries that you see? That can be a different thing. Biomechanically wise, I guess the problem is that an injury then causes an injury, then causes an injury, because the kinetic chain all works together. And once you got one thing out of place, it has a knock-on effect, chain effect. Limited dorsiflexion in the ankle, classic one for me. So that's if you're dorsiflexion using the wall test. Type this in on Google. If it's less than 10 centimeters, less than 15 centimeters really, but less than 10 centimeters, I think you're going to put more strain on other areas of the body, and yeah, that ankle's not going to be efficient at all for absorbing load, producing load. So limited dorsiflexion, big one. Excessive overpronation, which usually comes with a excessive dorsiflexion. Some of this is then caused by lower back tightness, especially around the SI joint. What else? From a muscular point of view, weak glutes, tight hip flexors, weak abdominals, tight lower back, and that there's like a combination of a classic anterior pelvic tilt from our sitting down culture, driving. That's just a product of our environment. So I think that leads on to the next question. Yeah, it does, about strength training. But so yeah, our society, we sit down a lot, so glutes turn off, hip flexors get tight, abs are weak if we don't train them, lower back gets tight. So then this causes all sorts of problems, and it doesn't matter. Yeah, I mean, can you change your lifestyle for that? If you have an 9-hour job that requires you to be in a certain position, yeah, it's hard to work around that. But there are things we can do, but then it's extra time. And a lot of like correction exercises and things, but yeah. And then shoes have a big impact as well. And shoes have changed a lot in 5 years. Some people's foot does not fit a lot of the new shoes coming out. I'm not saying we need to like go completely barefoot, because that again is an injury risk at the beginning to transition and stuff, in terms of like going to zero drop. It's not for everyone. Everyone's foot's different. But yeah, that kind of what I've said about the hip area and the ankle is very common. And then you kind of have that hip drop, so that knee internally rotates, which causes the pronation, the overpronation of the ankle, which comes from the hip. So it's like it's just a series of events that it's so common. And yeah, if you don't strength train and make yourself stronger and increase range of motion around those joints, you are going to have some problems. So let's go on to the next question, because that kind of goes into that. How important is strength training for injury prevention and performance? I don't know how people don't strength train. See, there's so many angles to this question, because it's not as simple as like you just need to go in the gym and you need to lift some weights. That's actually could be an injury risk in itself. It really depends on your background. I feel like I go around the houses on each of these questions, because you can't just answer it simply, because I've seen so many different scenarios coaching that many different people. But we need a mix of strength training. So if I'm to keep this really simple, we need to increase our strength across a bigger range of motion. And we need to increase our elasticity of our tendons and our tendon stiffness and strength, as well as our muscles, as well as our ligaments and our bones. But just doing one type of strength training doesn't do all that. So we need a mixture of stuff. And do we always need to go to the gym? No, we can use hills, and we do that with the short hill sprints that we do. Okay, let's give an example week that really fits. So what I think you need in a week, everyone, some form of resistance training, where you're moving against a resistance that's challenging, providing a stimulus, but it's recoverable. In the main muscle groups: hamstrings, quads, calves, glutes, And some of the exercises covers all that. For example, a squat, a deadlift, big compound movements. Then you could say, do you work double leg or single leg? It depends what the difference is, I guess. I think it's good to do both, but then it's more than one session here, and not everyone has time for more than one session. But yeah, the principle is we need to move some resistance with full range of motion in the main muscle groups. We need to do some maximum isometric stuff. So, for example, for our Achilles tendon, some heavy isometrics where we literally hold 5 seconds, like 80% 1 rep max. Hard to know what that is when you're doing a single leg calf raise against something or holding something. But yeah, that could be like holding like 60, 80, 100 kilograms for some people. Single leg with your heel raised, just for 5 seconds, then rest, and then kind of do it until failure really, but really maxing out the tendon. And you can do that in lunge position to work on kind of the hips and the knee, in a variety of different angles. But yeah, some like maximum stuff like that. Some plyometrics, which are hard to integrate if you've never done them before, but kind of rebounding, working on short ground contact time, adding that increase in muscle stiffness and elasticity in our tendons. And so like drop jumps, or just basically hopping over hurdles or short hurdles. A little bit of that. Doesn't need to be a lot of foot contacts in one session. It really doesn't. Less is more when it comes to plyometrics. It's about being explosive and feeling good on the movements. Short ground contact time, feeling snappy. What else? We've got isometrics, resistance training, plyos. I think to put all that together, some hill sprints, 8, 7, 8, 10 seconds, or something quite steep, all out, maximum intensity, really slow recovery back. Ideally like 4 or 5 minutes recovery, but I can never get anyone to do that, so I tell them to walk back and mess around a bit at the bottom. But yeah, I want to get at least 90 seconds, but ideally more than that, because it's maximum intensity. But that kind of puts everything together, and then you're moving. So yeah, you're working against the resistance with a hill, producing a lot of force, a lot of power, and also improving your running mechanics as well by working against the hill. You've got people like Lydia that used to do like a hill circuit, or even Canova does it now really, where that's more about kind of strength endurance, which is something different. I don't know many people that do that Canova hill circuit, to be honest. I'm probably not going to go into it, but yeah, like Lydia used to do stuff where he would bound and then spring up a hill, but he didn't used to have his athletes do weight training, or particularly around, I'm thinking the athletes that he was coaching in the 60s, they would use a hill and they would bound up, which is like an exaggerated running action, or they would spring up, which is like high knees but working your ankles, in like slow motion, but like plyos basically. Bounding and springing is like plyos, and that would be a whole session. But he would have a hill phase in his periodization. So you have a base phase, then you have a hill phase, then he would have his anaerobic phase, then his racing phase. So you couldn't do that every week. So and a lot of people do skip that hill phase out because it is quite, it's tough, but it's hard to put in the kind of lifestyle of a lot of people now. But yeah, using plyos, I guess we can do that as well, and using the resistance training we can do that. So yeah, I don't know many people that do the springing and bounding now, but it is useful, but you don't need to do it all of it together. And I guess the last thing would be to do some yoga, some stretching, not excessively, but just making sure you've got good range of motion around the main muscle groups, because any tightness is going to cause problems. And yet combat that lifestyle factor of sitting down quite a lot, which kind of answers the last question as well. But so yeah, how important is it? Yeah, very important indeed. And you can use terrain in your week as well. So when you're doing your running sessions, using hilly terrain adds that resistance training element in as well, actually into your workouts. And then you could say what shoes you wear as well could develop your feet more. So if you wear zero drop, no support, your foot, ankle, calf complex is going to be working very hard. If you wear carbon shoe, it's not going to be working very hard, but your heart and lungs and cardiovascular system would work a little bit harder. So it's like getting a little bit of both in as well. Running in sand dunes, that's going to work your ankles a little bit more and stuff like that. So there's lots of ways you can improve your strength and conditioning. Okay, last couple of questions. Well, it might not be as long this Q&A. Just wrapping up. I think we've had about 40 questions altogether. Not on this one altogether. Okay, number 6. Last 2 questions. What's an example of something widely believed in running that science doesn't really support? Okay, is that for the good or for the bad? What's an example of something widely believed in running that science doesn't really support? It's like the stuff maybe non-runners say, that running's bad for your knees, and you could probably talk to some surgeons and they would agree with that. I think science doesn't really agree with racing a marathon. I don't think that's healthy, although we do it. Trying to get stung by a wasp. That'll be good on the camera, wouldn't it? How do I train in? What's an example of something widely believed? Yeah, like racing a marathon, racing a long distance event all out is not really that healthy on our body. Science doesn't agree with that. Science doesn't agree with, I guess, like significant high mileage. Because of it damages things. So is it running sinus, or is it not running sinus? That's a hard question. That I'm going to go on to the next one. I'm going to come back to that to think about anything, because like I said, I just come to these questions. I haven't really researched or had any preparation on that one. So I'll come back to that and see if the next one really brings any thoughts out. It might actually. How do elite training methods translate or not to everyday runners? Well, I think the theme of how they train and their principles translate, but I think their actual training weeks probably don't translate, because the reason why they can hit those training loads is because they don't have to go to work, because they can recover, because training is stress plus recovery equals growth. So if you're putting lots of stress on your body and then you're going to work putting more stress on your body, it's very hard to recover from the same training. But runners copy what elites do, because they copy what works and they copy what's trending and they copy what's relevant. So I guess they do translate because people do it, but you need to fit it into your structure and lifestyle. Like I said on the first couple of sessions, if you have 6 hours to train, yes, you can apply these principles from Kenenisa Bekele, or he's probably not the best person to use because he's a bit extreme. I mean, Kipchoge's marathon weeks are quite, I think most people would pretty much go with that. Not maybe the density of it in terms of doing that hard long run every week. But yeah, like Kipchoge's weeks essentially a fast long run, some fartlek, and a track session. I mean, that's pretty much most people's week who are doing an endurance event. You just have to adapt to where your current situation is at. I suppose that's quite an easy question to answer. But yeah, don't copy someone's training diary, some world champion's training diary, because that's not going to go down too well. Because you're looking at their highlight, remember. So if you're looking at an elite athlete, they've probably just done something really good. They've ran a world record or whatever, or a national record, and they've had some good results. So you're looking at like maybe 5, 10, 15, 20 years into their development. Are you also 20 years into your development? And if not, maybe look at what they were doing 10, 15 years ago that's enabled them to get to that position right now, because it's a process. So look at it as their journey and what allowed them to do that training in the first place. So what can you learn from their training, I guess? How did they arrive at that point? Why did they do that? Why are they doing this type of session to, gain a certain stimulus? Why not something else? Those are the questions you need to look at. So yeah, I'm going to wrap it up there for this part 3, a little bit shorter. But we could talk in a lot of detail on all these scientific questions, but also you don't need to overcomplicate it. I think the general theme of the last 3 sessions that I've done is like common sense, applying it to your individual situation, realising that it's not one rule for everything, in this context to every situation. So although information is widely available to all of us, it's about how you apply it for you right now. And also, I guess, to sum it up, it's not just one area that we need to focus on in terms of exercise physiology or the psychology part or the strength and conditioning part, the biomechanical part or the goal setting part. It's everything together, isn't it? And there's so many factors that go into you reaching your potential. So hopefully it's been thought-provoking, and it's good for me to, I guess, share some of the stuff in my head as well. And let's keep working over this summer with, maybe I get some new people coming to NEP as well in the next few weeks. But we got a good team doing a lot of good things at the moment, and we've got April's a very, very busy month with a lot of good things happening. But getting ready for a good summer for everyone, and hopefully I'm involved in the racing as well soon. Right, catch you soon, everyone.